Hello, and welcome to Wyverns and Weirdos Fathomless. I am your Dungeon Master Darby, and joining me as always are Eddie, playing 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧, Mitch, playing Nerys, Jake, playing the Fish Man, Laura, playing Rue, Joe, playing Alton, Emily, playing Cerise, and Zoe, playing Loren. Let's jump into it. So, where we last left off, the crew of the Polaris returned the mantle, only to discover Cerise and Loren awaiting them to very dramatically deliver an invoice. And now, while Kara escorts Cerise and Loren to 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧's quarters for a discussion, 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧 waits behind on the deck to discuss things with his officers.
𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧 kind of waves over the team of senior officers, as well as, I suppose, Rue would just be standing with him, and he kind of calls everyone over into a bit of a impromptu huddle. Right. I can't say this is where I wanted my evening to be going, I'll be honest with you.
Why not? This is good, is it not?
Yeah, they're like our allies or something, aren't they?
But they could have sent word. I'm not exactly thrilled that they came and then went ahead and chastised us for our hospitality. But you're right. Alas, I am tired. I'm being cautious to make up for a time that I wasn't. I don't know how long they'll be staying aboard, but I didn't want to worry the rest of the crew.
Of course, vigilance is very important. I'm sure it will go well. Rue, however, is listening carefully and is just very excited about the box that they're holding.
Are there any among you who wish to be present in these talks?
Nerys kind of, almost as if 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧 is speaking a different language, squints to try and strain to hear what 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧's saying, and responds with, if they have information regarding one of our own, I would very much like to be there. If that is what you are asking.
Of course, Nerys. I do, and I understand you're not necessarily the antagonist here, but I am hoping for things to go as smoothly as possible, so try not to let Loren get you.
Captain.
I'm sure Nerys will do very fine. He got some good singers in last time. Do you require me for this meeting?
Have some rest, Rue. The rest of you, as you were, hopefully we can get some rest soon.
If Nerys is going, then I have nothing to worry about. I'll keep an eye out. We are still in danger, and we have agitated the 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧, and they could still show up.
You all did good this evening. Thank you, Flort, for holding the fort. Right. Nerys, shall we?
Nerys doesn't respond, but he is looking between Alton and Fish Man, and on you saying that he does move with purpose.
I hope the meeting goes well, and you get good news of your friend.
So do I.
If anyone's wondering what that roll was, that was 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧 trying to do an insight to figure out what's going on with Nerys. He rolled a 3. The lad's just tired.
We will hold the fort. Have a good meeting with your friends.
They head off to 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧's quarters.
Rick, as they head off, is still looking excitedly at the box, and then looks at Ham and is like, keep an ear out, Ham. If there is trouble, we will have to go there soon, okay?
Loren and Cerise, as the door is held open for you, you notice that it's very much a large quarters where you can see half of the room is living quarters and the other half has been converted into a strange sort of office. And as Kara brings you in, there are very meticulously organized chests along the side wall, and along the far wall you see all of these different canvases sort of stacked on top of each other against the wall. Most of them charcoal, and the one to the front has what you can probably decipher as a great storm. Kara, she leads you into the room and gestures to the little sitting area. Would either of you know any sign language?
I think Loren would know conversational.
Cerise would maybe know a sign or two, but not a lot.
Before Kara can even say anything, Loren would look at this drawing of the storm on the sea and just kind of cock her head to the side and look at Kara and just go, good?
Kara nods graciously and does the sign that you would both likely know for thank you, and smiles warmly. And then she gestures to herself and signs something, and you understand after a moment that she's signing her name, like almost a formal introduction. After she's sat you down, she goes over to a desk and she grabs a notepad and she very quickly scratches out T ? And shows it to both of you.
No, thank you.
Cerise puts up her hands in front of her, like, no, I'm good.
She frowns a little bit and then she flips over to a new page. Whiskey? ?
I only drink me own. And Loren holds up her own flask, twists the top off and just takes a swig and looks like it tastes so fucking bad.
Cerise says, nothing is required. Thank you.
Kara just nods, goes over to what you can tell is her shelving and her desks, grabs out a very beautiful, ornate-looking glass and pours about 4 fingers of whiskey into it. And goes and sits on one of the smaller seats on that side of the room.
Well, there's more to you than meets the eye, isn't there?
There's more to all of them than meets the eye, Captain.
Kara kind of cocks an eyebrow at Cerise and gives her a very small, almost like secret smile.
Cerise winks back.
Even the catfolk. Even the married catfolk.
I'm just being friendly.
I know what you're like when you're friendly.
It's probably about then that Tibble and Nerys enter. Thank you for your patience. I'll just be one further moment. Both of you don't mind, do you? I just want to change my shirt.
Not at all.
Also, Nerys will be attending this meeting.
Good of you to show up.
Nerys will give a very slight nod, but otherwise won't interact at this stage, and just kind of has entered the room and has stepped off to the right and is standing with his back to the wall and is just sort of watching the two of you. Did you say there's tea set out on the table?
No, but Kara looks up at you from her seat and she signs to you asking if you want tea or a drink or anything.
Ah, cool. Then Nerys will look at Kara for maybe a second too long without responding, and then just shake his head curtly, and then look back at Loren.
Loren is looking right at Nerys, and she does not look happy.
Meanwhile, in the corner, Tibble strips off his sopping wet shirt, and you see him reach into a dresser and pull out quite a soft-looking, almost sweater-like. Like, it's just nice and soft, and he looks very cozy. And he's like, right, apologies. Sorry you weren't given a warmer welcome. It is quite late at night. We have had quite a day. I do appreciate seeing both of your lovely faces again. And he kind of sits down. I guess he tries to sit in a seat where he can sort of keep an eye on everyone, which I imagine probably puts him closer to the far end of the room. Right. May I ask what brought you with such urgency to my ship?
Well, if I may speak for both the captain and myself, that was mostly for the drama. We're not often people who announce ourselves. The point of urgency, as I said, I was able to get in contact with some people who may or may not know about your man. Took a lot of feckin' effort. Apologies, Nerys.
We appreciate everything you have done. What what have you learned?
Not much, unfortunately. 3 cents even on an invoice is a pretty penny. And there's only so much you can get in 25 words, and any other information I can get, it's muddied. What I do know is that a lot of people know how the Sin Seekers work. They keep people tracked from being found, and they get them to do what they want. You should feel lucky. You know your man's alive, because if they wanted him dead, they would have made you all watch. As it is, he's with them. But without a way to break through anti-scrying, there's no way to find him. Unless we find one of the others. Or a thing they're working on. It's muddy what they're looking for. But from what I could find from the people who are willing to talk, potential is the only word being used. Something about finding potential. So, you know. Whatever that means to you.
The more Loren spoke, and the more Loren explained, this exhausted, almost stony Tibble, you see him start to soften more to the captain that you're used to. You've done well, correct?
I've done what was asked of us. Favor repaid. If it's information you can use, then it's there. And you know, for all that he may have permanently ruined me shoulder joint, your man is a fellow being of the storm. We have an affinity.
Do you think there's information there we can use, Nerys?
So Nerys, almost unblinking in the weird way that he is, was focusing in on everything that Loren was saying, and as soon as Loren stopped talking and Captain Clover started responding and asking questions and thanking them, Nerys continued to look in Loren's direction, but almost like through them, and his mouth is moving and making wordlessly repeating back certain phrases that were said. And as he recognizes his own name, he kind of snaps out of it and looks at you, Captain. Any information is good information. It is more than what we had. That is something we can work with.
Good. I'm always happy to help out the crew of the good ship Polaris.
Nerys involuntarily twitches at something that was said there.
Kara, do you want to fix up something for those that were on mission? Leave us with our guests for a while. Kara, she quietly gets up and she signs something else that neither of you understand. But Nerys, if you're at all paying attention, you would see that Kara signs, "Be careful of the child of the storm." And then she goes.
Watching Kara sign that as she leaves, Nerys feels almost this pinch, like a sharp, painful memory. Not emotionally painful, physically, it's stabbing. This memory of a recollection that wasn't his of a time Nerys can't quite piece together. But that signing of be careful before Kara leaves just pricks the back of his mind. And it hurts. And Nerys looks over at the captain and then back at Loren and is just going to, instead of trying to focus on what Loren is saying, Nerys is going to try and focus on what Loren is feeling. And we want to try and figure out what's happening here.
It would be an insight outside of any sort of magical assistance.
Can Tibble also make an insight check?
Also,
I might get him to do one for both Loren and Cerise, actually.
Yeah. I will get you to each roll deception, persuasion, straight charisma, whatever you would like. If you wish to hide your emotions or keep a straight face or perform a certain emotion, and it will be up to you to, based on the difference and the directions of these checks, what kind of external signifiers of emotion might be seen.
For reference, so Nerys isn't using magic to determine what's happening. He's trying to just gauge emotional feedback, and Nerys is very good at trying to, in a conversation, control the direction of it. He's trying to figure out if Loren is giving information or controlling the room.
Kibble's just trying to understand what the fuck's going on. He rolled an 8 for Cerise, but a 15 for Loren.
Nerys has a 19 for Loren. Doesn't care about Cerise. Sorry.
Cerise and Loren, you don't have to tell your numerical results, but based on the difference and which way that difference lies, what might Tibble and Nerys glean from each of you?
Well, I did not roll because Cerise is not hiding anything. Sort of on the surface, she looks like she's just sort of there enjoying whatever the fuck's going on. But behind that, there's a little bit of trepidation. Read into that as you will.
For Loren, Tibble meets her deception roll. Again, he's not a mind reader, and this is Tibbs here. He can probably tell that Loren is not actually all that pleased to be helping, that she's quite mad about something. He wouldn't be able to work out what or why, potentially just that they've been put out, even though they're the ones who came here and announced that they're out so late, or even that she had to finish this bargain at all. She seems just annoyed about something. Nerys was not looking for what Loren is putting out there. He was looking for something different. She is holding something back because she does not want Tibble to know why she is angry.
Tibble kind of taking stock of the environment around him. He's like, right, well, apologies if this is a bit blunt, but Loren, you seem a bit upset, love, and I don't understand why.
Loren has been not hiding that she's annoyed because her responses have been very clipped, but there's this moment where her face falls entirely into what can only be described as an active resting bitch face. Apologies, Captain Clover. It's been a long week, and a particularly long day. I don't mean to take my aggression on others out on those in this room. If you'll excuse me, I think I need to walk it off. And she gets up and starts walking.
Loren, I didn't mean... He doesn't make to stop you, but he does seem quite genuinely apologetic. And he kind of turns to Cerise and he's like, I hate to ask this, but are my crew going to be... She's not going to bring like a...
As long as none of them say the wrong thing.
I think most of them will likely stay away.
As long as they do that, it should be fine. And she points at Nerys. You should probably keep your distance.
That is a very good idea. And Nerys turns and follows.
Tibble he opens his mouth in like just bewilderment, and then he just closes it and shakes his head.
It's been quite a few weeks for you, hasn't it? Losing a crewmate?
Aye, it has. Are you sailing well?
Always.
The way of the job.
Just the job?
Well, of my job, keeping my crew safe, looking after them. You would know, as a fellow captain.
Of course. Just like I know you can't always keep all of them safe.
Okay, so meanwhile on deck,
Fishman would probably find Nyzen and probably bring him up to speed as to like what he's noticed around up in the crow's nest, and essentially try and swap shifts and get Nyzen to go on lookout.
that's easy enough to do.
And then he'll probably go and try and find Alton if he can.
Yeah, I think Alton would have just been like loitering around deck, essentially. Just like looking up at the stars, like, seriously? And he'd greet Fishman and as he comes by. Oh, hey.
Hey,
Day we are having.
I hope it comes to an end soon.
Yeah, same here. Here I was, getting all nice and ready to get tucked into bed. And boom, another dramatic thing going on.
I hope we have no more surprises. No more fights. No more random people appearing aboard our vessel.
Yes, definitely. But, do you know, what's up with these two? That's Cerise, the captain. What's up with that? She seems to know you.
She does. I was aboard the Red Phoenix after our parley. And I was there for negotiations, and it seems they're here for a favor owed. I'm assuming that's what they're cashing in on, so to speak, right now. I've heard of Captain Thunderbolt before, but it's quite impressive to see them in person. The second time I saw them, a lot more shocking than the first, I will say. That was a joke.
Yes, nice one.
Fishman's gonna look around and see like if there's anyone nearby at the moment, and probably wait until there isn't, within eavesdropping distance, essentially. I would like to speak with you. It's been a while since I've had the opportunity. Something you said a while ago, it's been piquing my interest.
Oh, I say a lot of bullshit, to be honest.
The breadsticks.
The
table. You mentioned something about visions and such. I was hoping, could we, when things are a little bit more safe and not quite on edge, could we please meet up and have a chat? You seem to want a lot of discretion with the whole breadstick ordeal. I thought that was to be secretive.
Yes, no, that was my little masterful ploy there. I mean, if I've got a moment now, I'm sure I can fill you in out a little bit. I don't know, you're going to go in thinking that I'm crazy and everything, like... He looks rather uncomfortable, but he just kind of shrugs, like, willing to have a chat if you are.
I do not judge. I'm merely curious, and I'm sure you have some questions for me as well.
For sure, no, I think I was getting a little curious if maybe our situations are similar. Maybe we can help somehow if we're going through similar difficulties, although I don't exactly know. You seem to be an interesting case.
You too. And then maybe at this point, a few people get too close, and Fishman will say, "We'll talk later."
Hopefully no attacks happen.
Fingers crossed.
Oh, and good job on the mission before. You done much breaking and entering. It's nicely done.
I'm a fan of tactics. I'm a fan of plot. I'm a fan of thinking things through. Plan A, Plan B. The way I see it, breaking and entering is just a series of plans and switching between them. It is a ever-adapting situation.
He gives a sharp tooth grin and is like, yes, exactly, I like the way you think.
Do you have much experience? You were also quite good at it.
Oh, thank you. It's not my most common thing, but I've definitely had to break into steel goods before, and I don't have any myself, or if there's just a rich twat that I want to, fuck over a little. Did end up going to prison for it the last time I did that, but there's always room for improvement.
Prison time? Not something I'd expect.
Oh, really? I mean, a lot of people tend to looking at me, and he just indicates he's scars across his face, tattoos on his arms, his kind of rough-looking appearance.
You live the life of a mercenary. Battle is almost guaranteed. I wouldn't go straight to jail, but definitely battle. And you look very experienced.
In jail time and battle, yes. Thanks. Now that's life in the Pathless Isles. I'll check on Kara and we'll see if we have to go into combat or...
I trust our captain, and I trust Nerys. I don't believe Nerys would put himself in unnecessary danger, nor would I believe he'd put the ship in harm's way.
Meanwhile, Nerys.
So Nerys is going to go out the door, close it behind him.
You walk out into the hallway and she is standing there waiting for you.
I think we need to have a discussion.
Where's your office? And she just starts walking.
Oh. Nerys is going to follow. And I guess, without saying anything, Nerys will just follow a few feet behind Loren, and there's a soft muttering under Nerys's breath as a door on your left will slowly creak open as a slightly incorporeal hand will turn the handle and open it.
Oh, no wonder you look like you don't walk much. And she just walks in.
Nerys will enter, close the door again, and will just stand with his back to the door.
It's a nice room you got here. Is that real oak for the desk? Looks nice. Is there only one chair in here?
There is a small footstool that people can sit on in the corner, and Nerys will walk over to the corner and slowly drag it out to the other side of the desk.
When he turns around, she is sitting on the desk.
Yep.
Cute.
It was meant to be practical. It was smaller than the design specifications. And Nerys will just move the footstool back a little bit and will take a seat on it, because that's where he feels he deserves to be.
So, Quartermaster Solalanti, why'd you follow me?
I know the look of someone who is controlling a conversation with the words that they use. You are skilled at what you do, but I get a sense with your appeal to the dramatic panache, that wasn't the exit you were planning, which makes me think you have a bigger one planned.
So you are smarter than you look.
A little offensive, but okay.
You followed me for a reason.
And you let me for a reason.
What are you all doing here? Why are you all on missions that aren't getting him back? What sort of a feckin' crew are you? Is loyalty only skin deep? Oh, sorry. Did it hurt your feelings?
Look, the Polaris is dedicated to its crew. However, there are certain regulations being part of a mercenary company that we must follow.
Oh, bullshit. Don't feed me a load of craw and call it 5-star, Nerys Solalanti.
We have to do what we are paid for, otherwise we don't have any way of continuing.
So you're content to just leave it up to the fates as to whether he has a chance of continuing?
I am not content.
Then why are you here? If the whole ship can't go, why can't you?
I'm trying to do what I can. I am trying to do what I can to find the crew member that has temporarily been taken by somebody else. And we will have him back.
Aye. And how much information did you get in 2 weeks that I got this morning?
Well, you are being paid to find information, so we both have the
I
same
wasn't
amount of
paid. I was paid and being allowed back on my own ship. And then you were all content to walk off with Alton and his little policeman before we finished giving information. You didn't even tell me what we were really looking for. But you could talk to me about a funny little storm. You could poke around in my business.
I don't want to poke around in your business.
That's the only smart thing you've said so far. What do you think
Navigator Hartwell, do you have any further information that will aid the hunt for our bosun?
You can't even say his name, can you? Do you think he's waiting for you? Do you think he's waiting for his crew to come save him, or do you think he's given up?
I cannot answer those questions because I do not know. I do not deal in maybes. I deal in facts. And you have brought me facts, and we will do what we can to find him based on what you have told us.
So you can't say. Then that's a good thing I asked him.
What do you mean?
You caught me in one lie, 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧. I didn't speak to multiple people about him. I spoke to the man himself. Paying 300 gold a pop for a spell you have. Why do you think I'm feckin' angry?
We knew that there was magic involved.
I won't give you too much grief for that one. Even Janus admits I got lucky. Maybe you could have gotten lucky. Or maybe you could have sent sending after sending and gotten blocked off. But you don't know. You don't deal in maybes, so you didn't try. Is that why you didn't go to him?
When?
Don't play the fool. He called for you. When it was happening. He remembers that. Only crew member he brought up.
How could I possibly believe that? You are a pirate.
Oh.
You lie and you cheat.
Really?
That is what you do.
Then, for once, Nerys, I'm gonna grant you a blessing, not granted to most. Read me mind. You think I'm lying? I'll let you in.
That sentence alone, Nerys knows the answer. And I think he begins to cast a spell, and his hands just fall limp in his lap. Thank you for bringing me this information.
Gods. I figured you all on the Polaris must be something else for this to have happened. Didn't expect you to be heartless.
There was missions, and Nerys is now just talking, but his eyes are not. He's not focusing on what he's saying anymore. To all intents and purposes, broken. We're mercenaries. It's what we do. It's what we do.
We're pirates. We'd still rescue our own crew.
And so you should. I don't know if you came out here for a reason. I don't know if you have everything that you yearn for.
I was expecting an answer. Somehow you elude me again.
Unfortunately, I got my answer.
Be sure to tell his wife and kids how bad you feel.
Get out. Just go, please. You're done. You win. Sure, you're happy.
It's not a victory. Like I said, he and I are one of the same storm. We fight for what's ours. Enjoy your time on the good ship Polaris. And she goes to leave.
Wait,
I'm listening.
if Janus was part of the Red Phoenix, what would you do? What would be your next steps?
That's not up to me. But not everyone in our crew has to do all the stabbing and murdering. Some people like to stay safe on the deck. Some of us like to fight. He could choose. He chose the Polaris and got taken. We'd make sure that wouldn't happen again.
You see Nerys' shoulders are just slumped. He's stood up at this point, but he's not much taller than when he was sitting upright. His head is down. It's almost like a hassle to raise his eyes to meet yours, Loren. I know. I don't know.
It's healthy to admit that now and again.
This is not healthy. I don't know what to do.
The answer's obvious, isn't it? You know what the only logical conclusion is? You get him back.
Thank you.
Don't. Good evening. She does a little 2-finger salute and she walks out of the office.
Just full tears.
Oh, not bad.
As things have settled down a bit in the wake of Nerys and Loren's altercation, Alton and Fish Man, where do you find yourselves for this conversation?
That's a very good question. That's what I was going to ask.
What do you like? You're just in his room and stuff.
Fishman just a flat rule doesn't allow anyone in his room.
Yeah, and Alton's bedroom be fine.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, cool. So I guess we eventually find ourselves in Alton's room. Thanks again for this. As I said earlier, it has been troubling me. We spoke of visions, and you mentioned to be wary if they were of my own origin.
In the world we live in, it's a valid concern to have, unfortunately. There are spells that can do that, and other things to make you put things in your mind that don't come from you.
You are very knowledgeable on this. Might I ask why?
Oh boy. Well, yes. This is the kind of conversation that I sometimes have with, like, I don't know, a boyfriend or like a doctor or something, and it's like, it has varying results, but yes, sure. For not quite 200, maybe 150 years or something, I've been having visions myself. Sometimes I can go a whole year or two without them. That's nice. No, lots of people don't know what to make of it, but there is something watching me. I don't know exactly what it is. I know it's something powerful, and it sends me these visions so that I don't forget that it can see me.
That is concerning and significant. Do you know what? If you don't mind, you seem to have a lot of history you conceal. Is this something you wish to speak about? I would fully understand if you didn't, but I would be concerned nonetheless.
No, fair enough. No, I don't know what it is. And to be honest, if this is something similar happening to you, you should do your best to avoid it too.
What does it show you?
The first time was, well, it's where I think our similarities. It brought me to the surface. It's like you say, it's like a vision. It's like sleepwalking. I barely know the journey I took, but I know that I took it. It took over for me, and it walked me right up to the surface, and then just left me there.
Much like how the beast we fought brought me to the back of the boat. I don't quite remember how I got there, but I do remember the journey, as you say, and then simply coming to. Perhaps these are similar.
That would be something. I mean, I've spoken to, like, clerics and warlocks before, and they don't have any kind of similar experience, really.
Do the visions show anything of promise? Or is it only dread?
They might show me something that's happening. I think they show me things from the present. Moments of joy, moments of grief, but the feeling to them, having that power, that coldness, this is not something that I want. There is nothing good about this.
If I could perhaps offer some assistance. I know not what they are, but I believe there are magics that help with being seen. I believe it's called scrying.
Right, so I can hide my presence from it.
You
Do you
say
think
it
that's going to
reminds
do
you
anything against a god?
A god.
That's what I think it is. I don't know why it hasn't struck me down yet. I don't know what it's planning. And he kind of went into this conversation in that kind of way where when you're trying to like disclose about something that you've lived with for a long time, you don't want the other person to be weird about it. You're trying to be casual about it. He kind of went into it that way. But he's getting more and more agitated and distressed as he is speaking about it, kind of losing handle of his emotions a little bit.
Fishman would look surprised when you mention things like a god, or when the visions happen and how you have that lapse of time between the vision and then coming to in a different place, almost as if you were possessed. But most of the time you can tell he's paying attention, you can tell he's in kind of like an accepting position, but probably when he notices that Alton loses kind of that emotional integrity, he'll take a step in and with outstretched arms, not touch it, just be like, "It is okay, we don't have to talk about it. You're on the Polaris, potentially what I would argue one of the safest vessels out there. We beat a leviathan of a beast, essentially against all odds."
Alton kind of shies back a little but doesn't step too far away.
Now, a god is not something I believe the Polaris has been up against, but I don't believe we would shy away from the challenge. But I advise against picking fights with gods, I would say.
Yes, no, that's not something I would ask of any of you. I've seen it, that the destruction that they can bring. All that we can do is try to avoid them. Just stay away from what the visions tell you. Just try to keep your head down, okay? If you're going through the same thing, then maybe we can keep their eyes off us together.
Is there more than a single seat in this room?
He just has two really standard looking chairs.
He'll probably pull one out and sit back on it and completely lean back with his chin facing up towards the ceiling. And you can sense that maybe he's getting a little tense himself, and he'll bring in a really big breath and then let out a really big sigh, and then he'll drop his head towards you and just say, "If that is what you want to do with your curse, that is fine. That is not what I want to do with my curse."
What do you have planned?
Nothing. I have nothing planned, and that is what I hate most. Every night, I look for a portal. Every night, I'm hoping to find and map out as many as I can find, ways in and out of this plane. I will disappear for years on end, and the Polaris has been amazing in allowing me to come back after such a lapse in time. I will go out and try and find these myself, but I've come to the realization that I cannot alone. I've now met what troubles me, the very thing, and I am still clueless as to what to do. At this stage, it is I wait for it to find me, and I have another chance. Because by the sounds of it, the thing I've been searching for this whole time is the only thing that knows anything about me. I have looked everywhere. I have tried and tried and failed and failed and failed. And the only time I succeed is by chance, by fate. I want to do more, and I want to find more. And I have asked many people for help. One of which on this very ship. And whilst I hope he pulls through, I am doubtful. No one has been able to help me. So I don't want to run away. I don't want to hide. And please don't take this as something that you must take to heart. If it makes you feel at ease to do what you are doing, then that is fine. You are simply doing the best you can. And the best I can do is keep on trying and trying. And it may be reckless, but I've been looking for a long time. And I'm starting to get tired. That's me.
So you're looking for your memories or the thing that took them from you?
As silly as it sounds, I'm looking for me. Who I used to be, what I've done, and who I am now. Some people have said to me to just simply be the person I am. Who cares about what's happened in the past? It's different for me. I wish I could be content with that, but I am cursed in more ways than most people think.
No, that makes sense. Sometimes I think that it'd be better just to not forget. But to lose that control over yourself. Those parts of yourself.
It's a funny choice of wording, to forget. And most people would love to forget things. But I believe it is far worse fate not to remember.
Look, I think your quest to find yourself is honorable. That makes a lot of sense. But if you ever start to find yourself straying too close to, he points up to the heavens. Oh, and he points down below. If any of them ask anything of you, if you have to give anything of yourself to find yourself, then step back. It is not worth it.
I can't shake the feeling that I've perhaps already been in that situation.
No.
I have faith that if I were to stray, the crew of the Polaris will help me, stop me or catch me. But I feel like I've already paid some toll and I'm not even aware of what that toll is. Perhaps the worst has already happened. I'm not quite sure what I was expecting coming into this conversation, but it's well past anything I could have imagined.
Yes, no, that did go well enough. I mean, definitely had people go like, oh, Alton, why in Fierlor would a god care about you? So that's, it's been a nice change.
Just know that I am quite knowledgeable of the areas we are around. I am quite knowledgeable of places to hide. If ever you find yourself in need of that information, please come and find me.
Thank you. I would offer you the same, but half my contacts, and he slices a finger across his throat in a gesture. Would you like some tea? I've actually modified my pistols a little bit as well, if you're interested.
Before he does say absolutely, it looked like he was fighting with himself for a brief moment, almost like eyes up to his forehead thinking, but then he'll brush his hands on his legs as if to be done with it, and then just gets up and says, sure, that would be great, and I'd love to see these guns.
Yes, I've definitely gotten the reload better, and he'll take him through the schematics and get out the pistols as well for Fishman to look at.
How do you think that last mission went?
Oh, well, I mean, quite well in the end.
I think it went exceptionally.
Yes, nice little stealth job.
And just the two of us.
Exactly, yes, like I said before, you make a good little burglar.
I am not little, and he outstretches his arms. But I was at that time, I guess.
Yes, odd little spell, really.
You are very skilled. I hope you know that. And it does show.
Thank you. I think he does his usual thing of taking a second to suss out the compliment. I'll roll the insight. Is this person being genuine? That's a 12. Does Fishman look very genuine?
You've known him to be quite honest. He doesn't often lie.
It's not, my main skill set. I do think that I am the most proficient as a medic, but I've dabbled.
I've been thinking about Nerys quite a lot recently. Particularly with how he avoids violence. And particularly with recent missions has been a very beacon of hope for a peaceful way to do things.
Yes, that is an interesting way of going about it.
And looking around at our crew, I believe stealth could perhaps be taught to a few more. A few of our crew are quite gung-ho.
Yes, that is very true.
And he'll probably, take one of the pistols. The safety will stay on. But yeah, he'll just, aim it around at, certain things in the room, going pew, pew. But we might not always find ourselves in a situation where stealth is the answer. It is just troubling how we are constantly walking on this slack line of morality. The life of a mercenary is hard.
I mean, it's a life where you kill people for money, but I do know what you mean.
Have you ever considered becoming a pirate?
I mean, it's maybe a profession I would have preferred over ship's cook.
I don't know, I'm just thinking. I've had a lot to think about recently, and it looks like he's really struggling to find words. Seeing how quickly the Red Phoenix has come up with answers makes me question whether or not this is the right line of work, the moral one. And as silly as it sounds, perhaps the life of a pirate could be more.
Alton, once again, just breaks into this sharp-toothed grin. I knew you were a cool guy. I couldn't agree more. You come to the right person if you're having doubts about this.
I would never turn my back on the Polaris, but it's just something I think of from time to time.
No, of course. I mean, there's only so much advancement as well that you can get in a little mercenary troop watched over by the heads of the Hydra. Whereas a pirate ship, we could do a lot more, make a name for ourselves.
That is very true. And we're quite capable as well. I'm not sure what fear-mongering we could do, like Captain Thunderbolt. What message we can put out there, the reputation, but if we did start our own pirate crew, what would we call ourselves? Let's indulge in this.
Good point. When my last gang, they were the Crimson Lakes, because when someone crossed the gang, we slit their throat and tossed them in a lake. I guess it depends on our watch.
How did they do it? I can't think of anything. How did they come up with these names? I don't get it.
One of my old bosses, her clinic was just literally called Bruna's Clinic. I worked for her for literally centuries. I knew her, and she never thought of a better name. And I couldn't really think of one either, to be honest. I can give it a brainstorm.
And they're just going to keep on coming up with terrible pirate crew names.
Yes. They do it for quite some time.
All right. So, is there anything else folks want to cover before turning in for the evening?
So Rue is on the deck. It's very quiet, and Rue's kind of just standing there, tapping their long fingers on the wooden box that Loren gave them.
Well, there is no explosions or sudden gunfire. So what do you think, Ham? Would it be safe to just take a little peek? You're very right. Why shouldn't we indulge?
And then Rue again taps the little fingers on the wood.
A gift to me for Rue Friday from someone who does not even know me that well. Now, is it a funny joke for them at my expense, or a gift truly given? We shall see.
And then they're going to very slowly and very carefully and very gingerly with focus unlatch this little box that Loren's given them.
So what Rue would see inside the little wooden box, there's little sheets of tissue paper on top of which are placed two
that is very nice.
of the shiniest red apples you've ever seen. And attached to the little stems is a little twine and card note in very chicken scratchy handwriting. It says "for ham" on the apples.
Oh dear. In our places, I might be afraid of these. But instead, this is a gift for you, Ham. Isn't that nice?
And then Rue will very carefully, put one apple in, their pouch. And then he takes another apple and contemplates Ham for a moment, holding the box in the other hand, and then tosses it high up in the air. I mean, in a very tall but short arc, which I imagine Ham probably jumps up and snaps up. and then they continue to have a look.
So under the tissue paper, if their spindly little fingers spider crawl their way across it and peel it away, underneath there's another little card that says "for Rue."
How delightful.
And it is a little bundle of feathers, clearly meant to be attached to a hat. And
these are marvelous.
And when Rue pulls them out, at the base would be many black feathers similar to a raven's, but not quite. And then there are these long plumes of very neatly trimmed red-eye peacock feathers.
Rue kind of just does a full body wiggle, I guess. And then they carefully snap the box shut.
Well, what a wonderful gift. It does not seem to be booby-trapped either. Oh, Ham, let's investigate.
And then they gesture for Ham, and then we'll excitedly hurry back to his room, carrying the box very high aloft.
I was going to say he may potentially run into Loren.
Oh, my apologies.
None taken. Oh, you opened your gift?
Yes, I did.
Do you like it?
I like it very much. And Ham liked the gift as well, didn't you, Ham? We're saving the second one for dessert.
No, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I figured, you've got the whole beaky thing going on. I thought something bird-themed might,
No, it's wonderful. It reminds me of back home. Or on Acheron, I suppose. I don't know where home is.
Do any of us, really?
I appreciate it very much. The feathers are wonderful.
Oh, good. That's good. I like to leave a smile on people's faces.
Lily, you do. Did your conversation go well?
It went great. That was a 19 deception.
Rue kind of just tilts their head to one side because it's a 21 inside.
Did it not go well?
Depends on who you ask.
That's true. What is good for some may be agony for others.
Feel like that's common on this ship.
That is also true. There are many different sorts.
For instance, I feel like your Captain Clover, he certainly enjoyed how the evening went.
I'm glad. He is of need of more cheer lately.
Really?
Yes. But isn't everyone? And you have given me much cheer by this wondrous gift.
I appreciate
it's the second gift I've received in the last 3 years now. Thank you very much.
What was the first one?
Mr. Tibble got me a notebook.
In 3 years, you've received a notebook and a feather in your cap.
Yes. I was not very popular upon Acheron Island.
Well, Loren gets this very, strange, pinched little look on her face. And then, she kind of leans in closer to Rue, where they're, in a hallway. I haven't been wanting to bring it up, because I've only met you the once. But, considering you just said that, I just feel the need to ask. Surely your medical condition isn't that bad, is it? Can't be that contagious for people to push you away.
What do you mean?
Well, you're wearing the mask. You've got something contagious then.
Oh, I hadn't thought about it being contagious. I have mostly good control over it.
You control it?
I'm trying to. accidents only happen sometimes.
Oh, you poor dear.
Oh,
Did you at least have a good doctor? I know you're a medic.
I'm a
or
doctor, yes.
Oh, a doctor. Yes. Oh. So were you doing your own treatments, Rue?
My own treatments to myself? I suppose not. My mentor helped make some repairs here and there.
Rue, come now. You don't have to call it repairs. It's medical care.
You are right. It is medical care, yes.
Aye.
But repairs is also apt.
Why?
Because it's fixing the material that is not skin, I suppose.
You don't have skin?
No, of course not.
What?
My apologies. The folk of Acheron Island mostly had feathers, of course. So this gift is really wonderful.
Sorry.
No, I don't have skin. My apologies.
Darling, is that why you wear all that? Because you don't. Are your muscles visible? Is that?
I don't really have muscles of a
Oh
sort.
my god! What a terrible accident it must have been.
Perhaps it was. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Oh no.
I think I'm missing something. This, and Rue kind of like gestures to like their mask and everything like that, and their like whole physique. This is just how I present myself, I suppose. To give comfort, I was simply adopting how some of the doctors dressed, and how the other bird folk on Acheron appear, to give them more comfort, because my appearance otherwise is somewhat unsettling.
Sorry, you're not flesh and blood.
Regrettably. It would be interesting to be so.
How?
But it is quite messy, I suppose.
It is very messy inhabiting a body. Sorry, I'm being... Is it rude of me to ask? You're presenting a certain way. I don't want to pry into things that aren't my business.
Have you heard of an Anamdal before?
Anamdal?
I assume everyone here has. The professor who was traveling with us for a while just plain out said it when I was trying to hide it.
He outed you?
Yes, it was very rude, honestly.
Feck him!
That is a good term. You don't covet magic from Anamdal, do you? Or animancy?
I've never even heard of them. I know my magic and not much else.
Insight check. It's a 14.
She's not lying. She doesn't know much about animancy or...
They just sort of like tilt their head to one side.
I see. Well, I've been told I'm Anamdal. I don't know a great deal about it. My mentor unfortunately left before we could find out what was missing and what I do not recall. But we are, or at least the books that I have read, of which there were scarce on Acheron, Anamdal are constructs of a sort.
Made?
But I'm not sure. No one knows how they're made, how we are made. But they must be made in some way. There is some damage to myself that I do not know of.
Someone hurt you?
Perhaps in the past. It's fine. I don't remember it. And I am
Doesn't
who
mean
I am
it's
now.
fair.
That is also true. But yes, people usually have the similar reaction, or worse, if they find out I do not have skin. So it's just easier to wear this.
Oh. Sorry for yelling and hollering and making a scene. That's
It's fine.
Well, no, it's not. I'm well versed myself in keeping up certain appearances for the comfort or discomfort of others.
Do you also not have skin?
No, I've definitely got skin.
I
See, you can poke it. And she holds up her arm.
They extend like a long kind of like claw.
Very healthy skin it is too.
I moisturize.
I can tell.
But is there like a cupboard, a linen closet, just a room?
But there'd probably be a cupboard or something like that.
Yeah.
An alcove.
All right, I'm just gonna and she just grabs Rue and does like pull them into a cupboard and looks at Ham and goes, 1 minute, and then just brings her in and goes, now I don't want you thinking that this is anything like those pantomimes where people do this and then they come out covered in the lipstick marks. That's not happening.
Good to know. What is the context of this then?
I knew I liked you, Rue Friday. We share something.
What is it?
I know very little of the air, but I know appearances.
Yes?
And again, I am sorry for saying what you are so loudly. I know you said that everyone on the crew knows, but that's still not my place to go poking and prying. And I like you. So if you tell anyone about this, you're gonna wind up at the bottom of the ocean.
They tilt their head to one side.
But neither of us are quite what we seem. And she takes her headband off, and in a little sight that Nerys has seen via clairvoyance, her ears unfurl. And I don't know if Rue would have seen a lot of these types of ears before, but they are fins. Iridescent blue and green with streaks of yellow, sparkling almost like they're still damp, even though they're not. And as they unfurl, you can see the watercolor bleed of that into the side of her temple that you could maybe have mistaken for a strange olive undertone.
Ah, are you one of the people that lives below the sea then?
Half a one, half Triton.
Oh, congratulations. Is there a reason you hide it? It is very pretty.
Well, like you said, when you don't look like the people around you, it's easier to become what's around you. It's easier to hide your ears. And she undoes the buttons on her collar and pulls them back to reveal gills down the side of her neck. It's easier to hide that around humans than a human face around Triton.
My apologies. It
And where
is
are
not
you?
a life for all.
No.
But those are very fine gills, and will treat you very well underwater.
Well, they do. They mighty do.
That is, I appreciate you showing me this, Loren. If this has been a concern for you.
Has it been a concern for you?
Only in a mirror way, I suppose.
Rook is like nattering while they're unfastening the latches of the Plague Doctor mask they have. And as like they start to remove the really bright lamplight that shines behind the glasses of their eyes, starts to warp around. And like Loren, I don't know what you're expecting to see, but basically when Rue takes this mask off, there is no shape of a face, I suppose. There's no structure of a face under, like, I guess where the mask is. Instead, it's the light behind the glass of the mask that is just swirling around in this kind of like, sort of not like overpowering, but this raw, fusing tempest of magic, I suppose. The animancy that sort of like fuels them. And you can kind of see there's some metal parts that are sort of, some sort of casing where perhaps a head might have been or something like that, but it is just cracked. So you can see there's been little metal filled in to sort of repair it, but the sort of head that Rue has is just magic, perhaps like a really bright white where there would be 2 lamplight eyes, and then 3 thread-like crystals that are just sort of floating around all in that, and then in the center is this big red eye with like a long split pupil, I suppose.
Loren just starts muttering in primordial, and you don't understand, but it does sound like almost a prayer.
Very
just sort of a, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph sort of
Rue
vibe.
very quickly puts their mask back on again and like,
Well, there we go.
You're a beauty.
Oh, thank you very much.
My God, you just walk around like that.
Well, I walk around like this.
You know, this is how I know that most people in the world are fucking idiots. Because only
Why?
an idiot would hate to see you. Rue, that's amazing.
Thank you very much. I thank you again for the gifts.
I feel like I should get you more just for that. You're the purest magic I've ever seen.
That may be true. But as we said,
And they put her finger to their imaginary mouth.
Of course. And she ties up her little headband again. Another thing you would have noticed, the first time you would have met Loren, the headband would have been folded quite narrow. You're realizing now just to cover her ears. As she puts it back on, it's quite wide on her head, and you look and realize the roots of her hair are green. Red is not her natural hair color.
thank you for sharing an understanding of yourself.
And I thank you the same. You know, if you're ever looking for a job, we've only got one medic.
Only one. Goodness me.
Their name's Stabbins. They're really good. And with a little wave of magic, these sparkling little electric bolts fly from her fingers as she creates a business card. And she holds it out to Rue. Maybe the Polaris doesn't need any doctors at all. And she hands it to Rue.
Rue very delicately takes the card.
I appreciate it. Thank you
same.
very much, Miss Loren.
So, any final little bits before characters retire for the evening?
Tibble, at some stage, throughout his conversation with Cerise, which I'm sure they are just exchanging captain's pleasantries, various different tales of different exploits, captain-like or not, he will extend an offer for both Cerise and, by proxy, Loren as well, to stay aboard the ship for the night and take their rest before leaving in the morning.
Cerise would take you up on that.
And he would show Cerise, and if he can find her, Loren, where the guest cabin is, and then he would retire for the night. In the meantime, Kara, when she left her husband, she really did go down to the kitchen to start some food for supper. And she will methodically make her way around to each of the crew members who do and can eat to offer them supper. Kara would have made her way to Alton's room, quite surprised to see Fishman there also, but offers you both like a warm smile and some hot food. And last but not least, she makes her way over to Nerys, and she'll gently knock on Nerys's door.
So you can see the light coming out from underneath the door, flickering candlelight. And normally the door would open almost immediately. There is a slight pause as, unbeknownst to Kara, Nerys has, still kind of sitting in front of his desk, quickly grabbed his wand on hearing the knock at the door, gone to use a spell that he uses all the time to take the tears that are staining his face and his shirt and kind of try and pull them away. And they get about halfway and he sees them just kind of hovering in front of his body, and he's like, that doesn't matter. And he slowly puts it all back on and uses the wand to cast Mage Hand to open the door. And Kara would enter, seeing Nerys sitting propped up on his knees, not on the footstool, and will look up at Kara, tears dry but still present on his face as he looks up and cocks his head.
Kara, she stands for a moment in the doorway, unreadable as she kind of looks at you. And then she strides over to your desk, puts down the tray, strides back to the door and shuts it. And she turns to you and she kneels down in front of you. She doesn't ask what happened, but she does reach out to take your hands if they're offered.
He has one behind his back.
She takes your hand and she presses into the palm of it softly. And after a moment more of quiet, she releases your hand and signs to you, please eat.
There's a bit of a moment where Nerys is trying to almost think of, as probably Kara has seen Nerys do a lot before, several different conversations at once, before he signs, and it's very loose. He's just one hand. Some of the words aren't quite right. What are we here for?
She thinks a moment, and then she gestures we She makes the sign for we and then gestures between yourself and her. And then she makes the sign for we and gestures to the ship. And there's a question there.
Doesn't matter. Kara, you have known me for a while now. You knew what I was before when I joined the Polaris, how I was. Am I really better now? And for Kara's reference, there is very many visual signs that Nerys has been going through a lot of emotions lately. However, currently, all the tears have dried. There's hardly an inflection in his voice, and the only thing that you're getting from Nerys is curiosity.
She thinks a moment, and then her hands begin to move, and she says to you something she is saying with emphasis. You, Nerys, you're trying, and sometimes that's enough.
You're right. Sometimes it is enough. You trust your husband with your whole heart, do you not?
She searches your face for a moment. She signs to you. I would trust him with the fate of the moon, but he is still only mortal.
But you trust him?
I choose to, yes. Do you?
Nerys doesn't answer, and instead asks another question. Very similar signing, and it's very difficult to do this with one hand. Would probably take Kara a little bit of time to realize, because it almost looks like he asked the same question again. Do you trust your husband? There's a slight change. Kara realizes instead Nerys said, do you trust your captain?
Kara searches your eyes, and you would see the moment where she realizes what you're asking. And she searches them a moment longer. And then she answers, maybe not in the way that you'd expect. Captain is a title given to my husband by those who would choose to put anyone in power. Him, along with all men in power, along with all captains, along with you, along with I, we are mortal. I choose to trust him.
Nerys smiles in response, and it does seem to reach his eyes, and Nerys will give Kara's hand a little bit of a squeeze, look back at the food that has been placed on his desk, give a little nod, and sign, I will finish up here. You should get some sleep. Thank you.
Kara does this silent sort of chuckle, and she signs to you, well, you know that is not likely, but I will rest, as should you. And she gets to her feet, and she leans forward before you stand and kisses you on the brow and tussles your hair a little before leaving. And she quietly shuts the door behind her.
As the door closes, the smile from Nerys' face leaves his eyes, and he stares at the back of the door, the glass picture frame resting on the back of it, shattered, bits of glass on the floor, and off, covered from behind where the door was opened, is that small foot cushion that Nerys was sitting on before. Nerys, the smile now fully leaving his face, just says a couple of little phrases out aloud in his head that he's heard throughout the night, just almost tasting them in his mouth. We are all mortal. If they wanted your man dead, they would have made you watch. Why? Why would they not want him dead? And Nerys will reach into his satchel, which is just sort of slightly out of arm's reach, and pull out a small, carefully wrapped package that he bought earlier on in the evening. And he's just going to open it up. And sitting on a bed of tissue paper is a very small sort of gift shop vibe amulet to Shognash, which seemingly was wrapped as some form of a gift that he's going to look at. Finding potential. What does that mean? And Nerys will look over at just a couple of plants that he has growing just in a corner of his room, just sort of not adding to the room too much, but they're there. He's going to go over and just grab a little vine that's been snaking up one of the bookshelves. Who was I? He's going to snap it off. Who am I? And he's going to, still with one hand, just sort of wrap the vine around so it's a little loop in his hand, and he's going to squeeze it. He's going to bring his other hand out that was behind his back for that entire encounter. And he brings it up to his face, and there's a shard of glass in the palm that he looks at, slowly pooling with a little bit of blood. Who do I intend to become? And he looks back at the plants that are growing, just very slowly, in a similar vibe to what he normally does with his wand. He points this little loop of vine back down at the plants that it originated from, and there's this energy that takes shape over the plants, this necrotic power, where the plants, not just the plants in the corner, but the ones a little bit further along the wall, the one behind the door, they all wither and die. And Nerys looks back at the glass in his hand, and the blood is still there, but the wound is gone. And he just closes his hand around that glass. Who do I intend to become? Who do I need to become? And Nerys will ponder that question for the rest of the night and into the hours of the morning.
So eventually, sleep finds you all. And in that sleep, Cerise, you find yourself in what appears to be the reception hall of a burnt-down noble estate. You're not particularly familiar with the architecture, though it's not alien or extraplanar. You see the floor is strewn with corpses in various states of decay, though most are down to the bone. Though the second floor isn't intact, a fact made abundantly clear by the way the dark grey sky is visible overhead, you see a lithe humanoid figure descending the grand staircase. His well-tailored, dark formal wear accentuating his form. His face is upturned in a perpetual sneer as his black hair drapes down over one eye. I think it's time we work out how you can repay me.
Certainly.
There are certain things I want that my binds don't allow me the capacity to seek. There is one who I can guide you to. He will know what to do.
Excellent.
Alton. You find yourself adrift at sea. The water is calm, the sky clear and blue. You lie there for a moment. It's peaceful. Until the sky starts to turn grey and fill with dark clouds. The pace of the water begins to pick up until you find yourself unable to simply float. You need to fight against the sea, swimming with all you've got, lest you succumb to the dark depths of the ocean. You hear a hoarse, feminine voice call out to you, "Foolish child! To think you have evaded me is sheer arrogance. I will claim you. That is as certain as the sun rising and falling, as sure as mountains crumbling to rubble over millennia. You may run for now, but before this ends, you will be mine." Nerys. You find yourself in an unfamiliar room. Identifiable details are scarce, but the design seems consistent with the architecture of Uncathare and the Isles in general. Whoever calls this place home is clearly quite affluent and very precise, judging by how the room and its contents are laid out. You see an arcane calendar on the wall indicating today's date.
Well, this is not the Polaris.
Your eyes are drawn to the one piece that seems to be out of place. A single piece of paper lying out upon the desk in the corner.
We should investigate.
And seeing this paper, you see there is a list of letters scrawled down the left-hand side. Some of them with additional runes, text of some language you don't recognize next to them, some of them with nothing. But the letters you recognize as common, and from top to bottom they read AOCVWJTMVRKSSTVWZC and ZM. Almost all paired up, except for that one singular S.
How big is this piece of paper? Does it look like there are other, like they're the start of words?
It is a standard piece of parchment paper.
Does it look like this is some form of a puzzle or a cipher? Or does it look like someone has tried to erase most of the page and only leaving the first letter?
It appears as if there doesn't appear to be a cipher that you can glance, at least not an obvious one. There doesn't seem to be any erasing that has taken place. Simply a list.
Is anybody here? Is there anything else in the room?
Yeah, roll an investigation check.
That's a 14 investigation.
14. Looking through the books, one of them appears to be a diary of some sort.
We take and just have a quick flick through if there seems to be time.
So flicking through the pages inside, they are all blank. But you do see written neatly inside the front cover the name 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧. The handwriting is consistent with the list on the table.
Is that name striking anything with Nerys?
Not at all. Actually, roll me an intelligence check.
12.
No, nothing familiar about it at all. Then suddenly you feel a voice, as if it was coming from your own mouth. How? Before you feel your consciousness forced out and you awake back on the Polaris. And that is where we're going to leave it for this week.
So
Very, very spicy.
Thank you for listening, folks. Been a fun one.
One thing I wanted to add, Fishman would have left something slid it under Alton's door before we all went to sleep as well, and it's probably something that Alton would find when they wake up. It's a little scribble he did, and it's funny now because of that vision as well. But so it's a very, very scribbly drawn sketch of a Polaris with all of the crewmates around, but most importantly, a happy Alton in the middle, with the subtitle, "This is what I see when I look at Alton."
Oh,
That is
It's hilarious
extremely
because
cute.
that thing was like, "Nah, I'm coming for you." It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Panic.
Yeah, I think he'd set that aside now because he's a little too stressed. But he's
Yeah.
going to appreciate that later, I'm
Well,
sure. That
yeah.
is adorable.
We'll deal with the aftermath of all that next week. Thank
See you
for-
next week, everyone.
Yes, thanks for listening.
Everyone,
Hey, guys.
have a wonderful week.
Good.
toodles.
Conrad.
Conrad, yes!
Emily, what the hell?
What? It was never said.
Oh, yeah, a specific emo flip and lives in a cute little mansion in like some other dimension. Yeah, it's fun.
It's a sexy little
Yeah.
fancy boy outfit.
MGK's emo girl song was written about Conrad.
For reference to anyone who
fucking
was
session,
in the pre-stream campaigns that I ran, either of them, that was at least fashioned after the
Yeah,
Soberloni
Soberloni.
estate.